So my name's Dominic. I am a principal consultant with Cornerstone's Thought Leadership and Advisory Service practice. We're an in-house consultancy team run for the benefit of the market and our customers, really to help them maximise the return on investment they get from investing in talent. First thing I'd like to say is this is a groundbreaking piece of research, and the reason it's a groundbreaking piece of research is, first and foremost, it's taken 4 years to compile. Secondly, with each iteration we've been able to go deeper to uncover insights around how you optimise that investment. With the latest report, we were able to add 7 key dimensions, really to get to the bottom of why high-performing organisations are able to minimise something we call the skills confidence gap. You asked, why is it so difficult? For me, that's really simple. It's because it's about organisational change. We've got to move from focusing on what needs doing to how and what needs doing. And that requires investment, it requires people change, but most of all, it requires business advocacy. And I think that's why it's so challenging. We're all really busy. Talent HR really need to reach out to the business to secure the investment and, more importantly, the time and commitment that's needed to make that work. One of the things that business actually already understands, but it's a message that's worth reinforcing, is the pace of change is the fastest it's ever going to be, and it's only going to get faster. AI is already in business, but its impact is going to get even greater. So what does that mean in plain speaking? Ultimately, how we need to work to be effective is changing at an unprecedented pace. And it's about, how do we respond to that? What do we need to do? Because ultimately, that's not something we can ignore. When we focused on what high-performing organisations get right, and there's obviously a lot of detail in the full research, but for me, if I step back, there's 3 things they do, and I call this the ABC approach. So first of all, they align with the expectations of employees, and they align to the needs of the business. Second, they ultimately, I would say, they take a balanced approach across each of the dimensions. So if we compare a high-performing organisation with one that isn't high-performing, it's not a case of they do 1 or 2 or 3 things better. They do better across those 7 dimensions, and it's achieving that balance. The third thing is, when they're looking at introducing a skills-based initiative, they don't just tend to look at 1 or 2 of those dimensions. Again, they look at all 7. So what they're effectively doing is creating a solution flow around those 7 dimensions. And it's those 3 things, that ABC, that's why they fundamentally achieve better results. The key to making that smooth transition, I talked about how this is business change, is really finding an area that the business prioritises operationally. So this is not a people conversation, this is a business conversation. And ultimately, by creating a vision about how creating skills faster is going to support that business critical agenda, that's ultimately the key to making that transition, because ultimately when it's something the business wants to do, that's really going to gain the priority of the workers, of the line managers, and it's creating that, it almost like, if you like, momentum. That's the key to ultimately closing the skills gap and becoming future work ready. So, for me, number 1 is skills. If you're going to work on a skills strategy, you need to have a skills infrastructure in place. So skills is 1. Number 2, that's learning. So I would describe that as ultimately push learning. That's traditional learning that we've always been used to. That doesn't go away with a skills-based organisation. Number 3, and here's the key, content. Content is where the learning actually happens. Skills is where you pick the learning that needs to happen, but content is what dictates what's learned. It's really important that content is in lockstep with how you want that work to be done in your business. So that's 3. For number 4, if we think of the 70-20-10 learning model, 70% of the learning is on the job. So having learnt these skills, having done some social learning, learnt from your peers, you actually need to practice them. So you need opportunity. After that, for me, comes essentially we need some data. We need some data to understand ultimately how the impact of moving to a skills-based organisation is happening in terms of business metrics. Then needs to come what I would call, which is number 6, I believe, a next generation performance conversation. So instead of performance being only rearward facing, based around primarily your competencies and what you've managed to achieve, it becomes a two-faced, if you like, two sides of the same coin. The other half is where we're looking at what steps need to be taken, what do you need to learn to close any skills gap that you might have, and then putting you in touch with content and people inside the business who can actually help you drive forward. So you've become forward facing as well as rearward facing with your performance assessment. And then the last thing is, and probably the most important of all, culture and technology. Unless you signpost that learning is the right thing to be doing to driving the business forwards, you're never going to find that time. So it's really important to signpost cultural change. Technology can help you signpost that technology change, but critically, what we've just talked about is obviously a more involved approach. That's going to require additional work. You need to create some capacity to do that. Technology can help with some of the heavy lifting to make implementing a new way of building skills a practical proposition. Really looking forward to those. Obviously Perry Tim's fantastic insights in terms of what good looks like, but critically a lot of experience in terms of taking what I would say is theory and making it a reality. You know, one of my favourite sayings is, we don't do this because it's easy, we do it because we thought it would be easy. And I think Perry's got some great insights on how we're making it a more practical proposition to embed being a skills-based organisation into your business. So I'm really looking forward to catching up with him and hearing about how he's helping make that a reality.